there's something called a customer interface. Okay? This is what the customer sees. And today, fortunately and unfortunately, we have a bunch of what we call form factors. Form factors are all of these different things. Today, a customer can be viewing your website or whatever online you have in any of these form factors, which can be your laptop, your desktop, your tablet, your phone, your phablet. There's so many form factors today. And form factor is basically devised from the size, because form factor changes based on you have a 15-inch screen, you have a 21-inch screen, you have nowadays a 14-inch laptop screen, you have an 11-inch phone screen these days, at times, the huge phones that they have. So these are all the different form factors you'll have to look out for. Okay? Why is it important? Why are we even talking about different form factors? Okay? When you go out and develop something to be used, today it has to be it's called as responsive design. So that one design can work across multiple devices and multiple form factors. So if you look at the example, and you look at how it's looking at the large screen versus how it's looking at the mobile phone, and even on the phone, look, one is vertical and the other is horizontal. Right? It's adopted to it. It's changed itself to adopt to that size and to the vertical or the horizontal look it has. Things have moved. This is called responsive design. So when you go out and you're developing your websites, your mobile interfaces, this is something that you need to understand. I know that a lot of people will come back to you and say, my site is responsive. But if you open it across multiple devices, you'll realize it's not. Okay? It might fit, but that doesn't mean it's responsive. If you look at this closely, they actually even move sections around to fit. Okay? So if you look at it, and if you look at the mobile one, right, you see that the section that's right under the picture now, it's a particular section. It's just squeezed in. A section has actually moved there. That's responsive design. Okay? So you're going to have to make that call. Do you want responsive or not? Because to do responsive does cost time and money. Okay? Something that all of you will need to remember, because today's customer is basically unforgiving. If I open a website on my mobile and it is not responsive, believe me, I'm not buying from you. It's very simple. And the way India is going, and I think we covered it in the numbers, most people are either searching or buying on a mobile. So you need to have the designs to be responsive. Okay? Now, something else.
What is the process? Is it on cloud?
No, the process is not about cloud. This process is about how the software is made. Okay? There are certain things. There's called CSS, which are cascading style sheets, whatever, that have to be modified and made in a way that they automatically adjust themselves. Okay? This is a technique that a developer uses. Okay? If the developer is not a smart developer and it's a newbie, believe me, they're going to mess this up. They need to understand how to make it responsive. Okay? Some people ask, if I have a site already, can it be made responsive? Yes, with some bit of modifications, yes, it can.
How can we find out?
So you just open that site on every device you see. You go to your friend and say, I'm going to open it on your phone. I'm going to see it on my phone. I'm going to open it on a tablet, in a laptop, in a desktop. Make sure that it looks logical to you. So what is logical? If I see a product picture, what should come after the product picture? The name of the product, right? If suddenly responsive design I'm starting to see price first, that's wrong. Maybe it looks fine, but price cannot be after, right? There's a logical flow to a page. That logical flow has to be maintained in responsive. It's not about fitting. Fitting anybody can do, but can my logical flow stay? The other question then you have is, do I need a mobile app? A lot of businesses today ask, right? Because you know what? There's a Windows version, there's a BlackBerry version, there's an Android version, and there is an iOS version. Do I need them? And what do I need them for? How do you make this decision? And I know you guys are not going to like the next slide because there's a lot of text in it. But you know what? This is how you have to decide. Do I go for a responsive website, which gives me the ability to still see my website on a browser on a mobile? Or do I build a mobile app? Okay? This is a question that every business will ask. Because it's easier for a developer to come to you and say, Sir, मैं आपको app देता हूँ ना. But wait, is the app realistically even worth it for me? And there are some questions we have, right? So depending on what location, I'm not even going to get about, because we've already talked about, right? So a website is designed in a way to detect screen size and get reoriented. That's what responsive is, right? It reorients itself. In an app, it's actually made for an operating system, right? iOS or whatever. Now, responsive website sits on a server, our server, right? We just talked about it, all the hardware we're going to have, right? And it's accessed using a browser, correct? Like we normally look at a website. But an app has to sit on the mobile device. So your challenge is how to get it on the mobile device. Because for somebody to use the app, they have to have the app, right? In case of a website or a responsive design website, they just open a browser, they're there. But an app, you need to get them to download it, okay? So you need to balance it out. Access to hardware. Now, a responsive website cannot really access the hardware of the computer, the laptop, the phone. It just cannot, because there are only certain features that can access. You know, our smartphones have all these things, right? Gyrometers and compass and this and that, correct? All of them have it. Now you understand that if an app is there, the app is able to access all of those features and functions of an app, of a smartphone, right? So when we use an app, right, let's say an Uber app, it knows where you are, right? Because it's using GPS, right? That's part of our phone. Now, luckily, what's happened is responsive design or website design has also gotten to a stage where they can also use GPS of the phone, right? Exactly. There's other things with it. But when it comes to your gyrometers and other things, responsive designs or responsive websites cannot use that on the phone. Only an app can use it. So how fast you're going, right? If you start running and you want a phone to tell you how much you walked today, a responsive website cannot do that. But an app can. Okay? Audience reach. Obviously, a responsive website is available to anybody. But when it comes to mobile app, it's only viewed by people who have it installed. Okay? And this, by the way, this slide is going to look like a lot of negativity towards mobile app. But reality is this. But there's obviously pluses also, and we'll get to it. When it gets to user experience, obviously there's a huge limitation when it comes to a website. The experience that you get on an app is very different than what you get from a website. Because the app is able to store things on your phone, is able to show you things faster. Okay? You use Make My Trip. I'll give you an example, okay? And you can do this in an off time. Use Make My Trip's website on your phone and download the app. You'll understand the difference in experience, okay? Because the app is storing a lot more data for you, storing a lot more images. It looks better, works faster, does all kinds of stuff, okay? Distribution and seeding, something where in case of a website, there's no distribution needed. No? Whenever somebody wants to access it, they type the URL. But in case of an app, you need to distribute it. It needs to be on the phone. It has to be seeded. It's a hard thing. To get a person to install an app is a very, very hard thing. And most of the time what happens is, by the way, I don't know if you know the numbers, but 90% of the installs are uninstalled within a day or two. Apps. Yeah, 90%. Because people will do it because they got a deal, or somebody says, I'll give you 10% cash back if you have my app, so I'll just do it, download it, use it, uninstall it. Because why? Two reasons. One, because a lot of us don't have enough memory on our phones to run all of these apps because each app is now taking huge amount of space, right? The other is that we just did it because we wanted to get that extra discount. Right? Now let's get rid of it. Okay? Can you imagine shopping? And this is an opportunity for people, and I don't know why somebody has not already done this. Why not an app that shows me that I can buy Flipkart, Snapdeal, Amazon all together? Where is that app? Why do I need 3 apps? So if you know this company called Ixigo, IXIGO, they've done it with taxis. So I can do an Ola, a Uber, a few others booking from one app. So it's great. I see all the taxis, right? Instead of just using Uber or Ola, I just open Ixigo, which I have, and I look at all the taxis around. It tells me which of the taxis are available, at what cost, and how far are they. And I click on it, and it takes me to that app, and I can actually call that taxi. But why does that not exist for shopping? And if it does, I don't know.
Amazon tried something like that with its subsidiary. They gave
Jungly.
competitive prices.
Jungly, but completely different. This is where my experience is there. But anyway, so that's why the distribution is actually very hard because nobody wants to have an app for everything. Everybody's launching an app. Imagine you all decide to launch an app. Now you tell sir, aap app download kar lena. I say, yeah, I'll think about it. 45 apps from a class. Can you imagine that? So it's not practical for every business to have an app, okay? Unless there is an overriding need for the app, where the experience you're giving is on the app. And I'll give you an example. You go to a theme park, right? In the US, you have a bunch of theme parks. You have here also. If a theme park has an app, it makes sense. Why? Imagine they can tell you waiting times for the different rides you're going to take, right? You can take a photo on that ride and they show it right on the app. Now, there's an overriding need for that app, at least for the time being that I'm going to be at that park, right? In the US, what they did was, if you take a photograph, it only stays till the app is there. So if you delete the app, the photograph goes. So I tried to keep one of the apps for a very long time. 6 months बाद मैंने app delete कर दिया कि अब तो photo जाने दो चलेगा. Because I didn't want the app anymore. But I'm just giving you an example. They had a reason, but it's also temporary.
You can't email the photo or
No, they did it on purpose, so you wouldn't delete the app. Anyway, last difference, which kind of we covered already, installation. There's no installation needed on a website. But on a mobile app, you need to download it and install it.
What's your final verdict, or it depends on product to product?
Product to product. What you have to give. So you have to look at all of these things, and if you still overcome the negatives of it, why not? So there are companies that are doing, these. You've seen these companies that do virtual trials. So they need the app. Without the app, they can't do it. So they have to have it. It's a very simple concept. Again, some more differences. When it's a website, you have to have data. App still works without data, right? Because there are things that are stored in the app on the phone. So you can work without data on the app. But website needs full data connectivity. So there is a negative if you just have a website, because if a person is going through multiple areas, you're going to lose them on the website. Okay? Ease of development. Obviously, the website is much easier than the app is. App, you have to have qualified people to do it for you. Resources, again, once you build the website, it doesn't matter. You can use it across any device, anything, as long as it's responsive. But in case of an app, right, you need to build it for every operating system there is. And you have to have different developers, because usually one developer that develops for iOS will not develop for Android, and the other way around also. They're the two largest, right? Most of us either own an iPhone or an Android phone. Ease and speed of development. Website, it's easier, right? As soon as you put an update on the website, it's done. App, how many of you download your app updates daily? You don't, right? That's the problem. If you update a feature, it won't get updated until the person decides to download the update in an app. But on a website, it doesn't matter. Whenever they open the website, new features come in. Okay? Updates, same thing. User confidence requires to build a confidence and trust around the solution. So if it's a responsive website, it requires some type of trust. But weird thing is, because an app resides on a Google Play Store, okay, or in iTunes Store, we have trust in it. How many of you download apps on your iPhone and other phones without actually checking who the person that made it is? Exactly. Because it's on iTunes or it's on Google Play Store, we'll download it. So confidence and trust in case of apps gets built just because it's there. In website, it doesn't happen that way. Okay? Last few differences, and then we're done with responsive versus app. So when it comes to search engine optimization, right? Responsive websites, obviously searchable by all search engines because they exist on the internet. Mobile apps can only be found through app stores. But there's a caveat to this. Google is fast changing this algorithm to let you search for apps as well. Okay, they're already starting to do this. So maybe this will equalize in the future. Okay, I've actually even heard that apps get a little bit more better preference at this point, but that may change. They change their algorithms very often. Monetization opportunities. So you cannot monetize a website, but an app you can definitely monetize because if it's an app that's interesting, let's say a gaming app, etc., you can charge for it. So gives you better opportunity to monetize when it's an app. And lastly, development costs. Like I said, website usually less expensive, apps decently expensive. You're probably talking about a couple of lakhs per operating system for an app, at least, if not more. A basic app will cost you a couple of lakhs per operating system for a good developer. What are the ways to develop your app? Okay, natively, like I said, you have iOS, you have your BlackBerry, you have Android, you have Windows, and now what you have is HTML5. HTML5, hypertext markup language, remember Nayan covered that? 5 is the newest version of the standard that allows you to have the app work across multiple platforms. If your app is developed in HTML5, it simply has to be switched over to another operating system and it will work. There's not new coding needed. It just has to be saved in that format, okay? And it works. But most developers are still not doing it. They'll do native in one or the other. Then you have frameworks like you were talking about. These are some of the frameworks that are out there. Appcelerator, Titanium, PhoneGap, Adobe Air, Essentia, there's more. Okay? These frameworks allow you to develop the apps much faster because they already have things ready. Right? There's a lot of, I don't want to call it plug and play, but there's a lot of plug and play there. Okay? You're able to develop apps faster. Now, not necessary that you go out and start using this tomorrow. Okay? Trying to develop your own app. Okay? Remember the other 100 things I told you before this. Why you would have it or why you would not have it. Okay? Again, I'm not going to go too detailed in this one. This one, couple of points in this. Obviously, native takes time to develop. Frameworks take less time. Okay? But when it comes to performance, okay? When it comes to performance, your native apps work faster and better than apps developed through frameworks. Do you know why? It's a simple concept. Frameworks are made for general, right? So they have everything built in. Things that you don't even need. Correct? When it's a native app, that doesn't happen. You build what you want. And as such, it's a faster app, lighter app. Okay, performance is better. Okay, so this is an analogy if you look at websites. If you develop a website in Magento, which is somewhat like a framework, it is a very heavy website. It runs slower, and it's a heavy website. Versus if you just built it ground up on your own. It's a lighter, better performing website. Okay? Same thing applies when it comes to mobile apps.
And earlier we spoke about wireframe.
Yeah.
So because dynamic, the website has to move across the tablet and the PC and the desktop and the mobiles, while designing the wireframe, is anything to be
Yes.
kept in mind?
Yep. You have to. So when you again, as part of wireframe, what happens is your wireframe is also developed across multiple devices, right? You have to understand the logical flow, which is what I was saying. If my image comes here, what comes after that? So your website has to be designed this way. So basically, it goes this way. Because agar image hai, whatever comes here, when it becomes responsive, it's going to come here.
There is a sequential.
It goes this way. That's how normally it's done. I mean, you can do whatever you want if you wish, but this is normally how it's done. That's why it goes this way. It automatically starts to adjust itself. Guys, one of the questions you all had, and I think most of us have anyway, when do we actually decide to go to mobile app only, right? Or at least have a mobile app for our businesses or for our ventures. So, Shamik, as you all know, Myntra was one of the first ones to launch mobile app only, right? They went mobile app only. So Shamik was the key person there. And I think he will have great insights for us as to when do we choose to go mobile app only. So let's ask Shamik. Shamik, can you shed some light for our entrepreneurs here when they should decide to go mobile app, maybe as solely mobile app or as a business along with their website?
I think the most important thing to remember whenever you are building any experience is that you have to solve what the customer's problem is, right? So the customers are wanting to use their mobile device because it is always with them, right? And they are already used to a certain set of sacrifices when they are using the mobile devices. They know that the mobile screen is smaller, but they like the fact that you can touch it, for example, right? You can't touch your desktop screen and do anything. So you have to leverage that advantage. So you make your images much more touch sensitive. So you can pinch it, you can zoom it, you can rotate it, and that way you allow you to zoom in and look at the part of the picture that you can see the best, right? So anytime, and not just this particular question, but anytime as an entrepreneur you are faced with certain challenges, you have to see the challenges and you have to see what resources you have to solve them, right? And you have to take those resources and to apply them to the problem. Say, okay, I have a mobile device, it has a small screen, I cannot help it. That's the reality, right? So now how can I see what are the advantages here? The advantages are that are closer to my eyes. So a smaller image might be okay. It is possible to pinch and zoom it that I can't do in the desktop. That's an advantage. How do I leverage that, right? So you have to look at your resources, you have to look at what the advantages are, and then apply those advantages to the problem that the customer is facing. But most problems that initially seem hard, once you strive and you work hard at it, you find that they are actually solvable.
Thanks, Shamik. Guys, I don't know if you were listening, but he made some valid points, and we've been talking about those valid points. One of the points he made was you can't go with the hype, right? You can't just go mobile app just because the newspapers are saying it and everybody's talking about it. We need to go mobile app if it makes sense for the business, if our audience requires that app. I think one of the things that we have to realize is that Myntra, even though they went mobile app only, they had to come back because they realized later that some of their audience was just not ready for mobile app only. And we need to make sure that we follow the exact same process. Shamik, can you provide insights to our audience here?
So I would strongly recommend against using some of those frameworks, right? Titanium, PhoneGap, Sencha. Primarily, we started out building our mobile apps using these hybrid technologies, as they are said. But it did not work out well for us, primarily because the overhead that these frameworks bring in takes away from the speed and the responsiveness of the mobile native experience, right? However, having said that, it is not that they are doomed forever, right? I think that in the future, there are other technologies coming in. For example, Facebook has released this thing called React Native, which is not really hybrid, but it is very close to that, right? And it allows you a lot of the benefits that a PhoneGap or a Titanium might offer you. So there are some of these frameworks that are the right choices for the right kind of problems, but by and large, you should look at building native. There are these SaaS companies nowadays where you can upload your APK in the mobile parlance, where you can give them the app and they will actually test it on many devices. We use such services, but we have also built our own frameworks and testing capabilities to do that. But if you are a smaller player, there are two things you can do. Either if you have the money, you can actually use one of these services. But secondly, what you can do is actually you can limit the devices that you really test with, right? Because even though there's a lot of fragmentation, if you narrow down and say, okay, what is 80% of the market, it narrows down the number of devices quite a lot, right? So if you have to make that choice, which I hope you don't have to, you can actually use one of these services to test. But if you can't, and in the beginning, some people everybody strapped for money, time, and all of that, you can start limiting, okay, I'm only going to target Samsung and Motorola devices. I'm only going to target iPhone 5 and 6, right? That will cover a large swath of the market, and you can get started that way.
Okay. Now, this is something that you all want to know. How do you go out and select one of these guys? So, this is usually how a software development team looks or should look. I know some of you say, मेरा एक site बनाना है, एक आदमी चाहिए, ये कहाँ मेरे को करना है. But reality is, without this kind of a team, there's no way it can be done properly. Maybe they don't work full time on your project, but you need all of them. You need a system analyst to tell you what are the business requirements and how to put them into technical terms, right? Their job is to architect your solution. It's not your job, because you cannot do it unless you're technically enabled, and then maybe you can, but otherwise you cannot. You need a project manager, somebody that manages that team that's working on this. You think you will do it? I'm sorry, but you have your own business to take care of and 100 other things to take care of, right? The guy says delivery kal aayegi, so you look at it that day. You forget about him the last 10 days, right? It doesn't happen that way, okay? Then you need all of these people. User experience person. Again, we're going to cover user experience and user interface. There are two modules that we have. So you'll understand why we're saying you'll need a person to do that, okay? Then DBA, which is your database, right? Your MySQL, your SQL Server. Somebody has to design it. No, the administrator will come once you have it. You need a designer, because it's an art. Literally, how do you do your table designs? How do you create your indexes? Okay? I can re-index a database to run 10 times faster. But you have to know all of that. Somebody has to be thinking. Okay? And it's you think that later I'll do it. You know what? You can't. This has to be done from day one, because things start to build. And baad mein jaake fix karna is very hard, some of this stuff. Developers, obviously, you need testing people. Because not only should you test, you need a professional, because they understand all the different variations that can happen, okay? And then you need a release manager, not necessarily for all of you, maybe when the business is a little larger. This is the person that takes care of what happens when you put the update out there. What are the challenges I can see, right? How do I take care of all of that? All of that stuff, okay? Graphic designer, obviously, with the user experience team, you also need a graphic designer. You need back-end people, front-end people, mobile app guys, I mean, when it comes to developers, okay? So this is how a team should somewhat look, okay? Like I said, they don't all have to be full-time on your project. They will need some time on your project though. Chahe wo 1 ghanta ho, ya 2 hours ho, ya 5 hours ho. They will need to spend some time on that project for that project to come out right.
I know a couple of people who just do testing.
Correct?
Yeah.
That's what they do.
They just get projects
Yes.
from their home, they test it and they send it back.
Yep. Yep. That's why I said it could be a part-time activity, it could be a contracted activity, but you need people of all of these skill sets.
What is APIs? Create APIs backend.
Okay, so basically APIs are programming interfaces that talk to other systems. So let's say that I want to talk to Amazon's backend systems, right? Because I'm building my software, I want to talk to their software. It's called an API. So APIs talk to each other. Because you're able to link to others, right? So whatever you do, you're not going to be able to do it alone, right? Let's say you're building a website. You need to ship something, right? To ship, you need a logistics provider. Now, how will you tell the logistics provider that the shipment is ready to go? You're going to call them? Again, you're going back to normal old stuff. way is through an API, they get a notification that there's a package waiting. Their truck comes, picks it up, and goes. Now, the other thing you need to make sure, besides that that person can give you all those skill sets, is are they able to develop not just web, but mobile as well? There's some people that will tell you, मैं web तो बना दूंगा, but mobile मेरे को मालूम नहीं. Yeah, the other way around. It cannot be. It has to be the same person. The same company, same team has to be able to develop both. Now, these are the types of developers that you see out there, right? They're the small guys, team size of up to 20. There's medium guys, about 100 or so. Team size of big guys, about 1,000 or so. Then you have the large guys, which are 1,000 plus. Obviously, most of us, believe me, we can't afford the large guys. Okay? Their costing is just in a different level. Okay? Where we usually all would want to play in is the small guy. You see the big X? That's your mistake. We can't play with that small guy. If they have a team size of 20, I just told you 8 or 9 positions he should have. That means he's got 1, 2 people in each position? Nah. That means he doesn't have those people.
We make an outsource.
No, so if they're outsourcing and you're outsourcing to them, don't you think the chain is becoming too long? Right? I've got like 5 outsourcing. Right? The guy says, oh, my designer is outsourced, my guy is outsourced. I'm thinking, you know what, I'll just do it myself. I'll leave it alone. So you have to, things have to be in control. If you look at it, right, the costs keep on going up as the size goes up. If the company is larger, your cost will be larger. But going after that small guy doesn't make sense for any of you. Okay? Not that I'm, again, trying to put those guys out of business, but the reality is they don't know. They don't have enough experience on hand. They don't have enough people on hand to know what to do. Okay? And if, by the way, if they are a good team of 5, 6 people, they will grow to above 20 in about a month or 2 because they'll get enough business out there. By the time you reach them, they've already had enough, more than 20 people around. Okay? So just kind of, and I'm not saying 20 as in 20, I mean, it could be 15, it could be 10, whatever. But you have to look out that they have to be able to build a team like that, okay? So this is my reasoning why. Because half the people ask us, why do we saying small developers ko avoid karo, right? One, poor skill sets, because they're also working on projects that are smaller, okay? High attrition rate. Nobody wants to stay with a small company, especially in the development world. They'd rather go work for the big guy because he has bigger projects, bigger names, etc. There's no backups. So if your project is late, too bad. So they just call you and tell you, ki, sorry, आदमी छुट्टी पे गया या बीमार हो गया या कुछ हो गया. Sorry. Right? Lack of functional experts. This is a big thing. They don't understand anything about a business. They understand technical. And remember, the first position we talked about was a system analyst, a person that understands business and converts them into technical terms. These guys don't have any of them. They'll just say, yeah, मैं करता हूँ ना. वो Nilesh showed you, right? Picture ये बनानी है, बनता और कुछ है. So, knowledge and skill sets of few technologies, because it's a small team, they will only know fewer technologies. They probably don't even know newer technologies. They'll know what they knew when they learned it first. Okay? No professionalism and poor quality, and I don't want to be mean, but that's what reality is. They have nothing to lose. Okay? So professionalism goes out the door. Right? That's what it is. Okay, what can happen? So, and quality is definitely, because of the other reasons, the quality never comes out. Okay? So, what should be your approach? In documentation, did Nilesh tell you what an SRS is? What is an SRS?
Software requirement specification.
Software requirement specifications. Very good. All right. So first step is prepare your SRS. Okay? That's why we do this one right after Nilesh. Right? There's a reason. Hopefully you remembered a good bit of it. Right? At least identify 2 vendors. Don't go after one. Okay? For everything you need to have 2 vendors in hand. Okay? Make sure you sign a non-disclosure agreement with them. If they're not asking you for a non-disclosure, that's because they don't know what it is. and they could care less, that professionalism thing. Make sure they sign a non-disclosure, because if you have an idea, let's say, and your idea is unique in some senses, oh, believe me, it takes them a minute to call another customer and say, sir, ये idea देखा था बहुत अच्छा है, आप भी कर लो ना. मैं आपको कम में देता हूँ, उनके मैंने 50,000 लिया, आपको मैं 25,000 में देता हूँ ना. And by the way, this is not untrue. This is what happens. Right? जैसे कि यार develop दूसरे के लिए तो कर ही लिया, अब तो free है घर में तो. Right? I'll sell it to someone else for a lower price. So, sign a non-disclosure so they're not able to tell others. Okay? Then, you can share the SRS and ask for a proposal from them. I know we're going through baby steps, but I want to make sure that people understand that it is a step-by-step process. Meet them to discuss the technologies and the development approach. It's very important. Ask them what they're going to use. Now you have more knowledge. What technologies out there, what the terminology, right? Hopefully we know a little more terms today. So at least you can have a conversation and ask them what technology will you use. What it will do is make them think that at least you know a little bit more, and they won't be able to fool you. Okay? Ask them what the approach is. We talked about the team we need. Ask them, do you have a system analyst on board? Right? Do you have a testing guy on board? Now, you know what? He's going to go home and he's going to think, अरे यार कहाँ से customer आया? कल सुबह phone आएगा आधे से, sir नहीं हम बहुत busy हैं. Project अभी नहीं ले सकते. I'm not kidding. That's what's going to happen. Because if they realize you're asking them for too many things, they just say, you know what? We don't want to do it. Unless they have it. Okay? Select the technology. Now, this bracket, right, says recommendations of bigger vendors shall get weightage. You know why we wrote that? Remember I said you have to have 2 for every type? What every type? Small, medium, large. Get the recommendations from the top guys, then use it. Obviously, you can't afford to get those guys, but at least you can use their recommendation because they would know best. They would probably tell you the latest, greatest things because they want you to be impressed. So now use that. That's the technology you want to use. Same thing, the point we were just making. Ask the guy to use the technology suggested by the large guy. Okay? It's just a little extra tip here. Okay? So we think we'll make a better decision.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah.
Just going back to the part of the apps. So where are these apps like stored? Like, because, like for example, when
Just like a website, it's stored on your online servers, your cloud servers or your online servers.
like if I go to CodeID or something, they would have this service.
So there's a different type of hosting for apps, but yes, almost every hosting provider now provides you hosting space for apps. Yeah.
And would they need the same kind of like we have a login, like a domain name or something like we have for?
No, apps don't have a domain name, but they need some kind of URL, right? So some way to get to the app. So domain, if it's not a domain, it'll be an IP address. They need something.
So if I already have a website, I can just use the same thing.
Yeah, you can have it app dot whatever. All right, so guys, we're gonna make a better selection of a vendor now. Yes. Are we sure?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the approach. We even formalized it for you. Here are the documents you want to create. Make sure you follow it. Sign the non-disclosure before sharing any document. Give them a reason. Tell them legally I'm going to come after you if my thing gets out. Okay? Sign the contract with the developer instead of just a purchase order. It's important. Don't just give them a purchase order. Tell them to make a contract. Okay? Because then they're liable. Okay? Ensure that all IPR belongs to you. Biggest mistake entrepreneurs make. They're so worried about saving money that they forget that they're building an IP, their intellectual property, and they don't sign these agreements with the developers because developers are the first guys that know all this inside. And you don't sign any agreement with them. So they're free to use it across whatever they want. Let's say your idea, right, about gifting. What about his idea about surprises? You tell the developer cannot use it across 10 sites. Okay? Ensure that the vendor will have to share source code with you if the development is being done. So a lot of people have gotten very smart, the developers. What they do is they say, हाँ मैं इतने में बना दूंगा, but there's no commitment to share the source code. They say हम आपके लिए host भी कर देंगे. We'll put it on our server for you too. We'll run it for you. आप monthly मेरे को इतना दे देना. They don't want to share the source code with you. The coding, the real coding behind it. So there's two things. Source code, once it's compiled, is useless to you. So once, let's say they send you a file, let's say the mobile app. The mobile app itself is actually useless as a person that owns it. You need the source code behind it for you to make any modifications, etc. So they can give you the app, but you can't do anything with it except use it. To make any changes, you need the source code.
Like if I have a website developed right now,
Yeah.
and for developing app, like I have to change vendor for app. Like the website is different vendor and app is different vendor. So I'll have to share the source code.
Yes.
So that would
Somewhat you'll have to. All right. As for long-term support for bug fixes, most developers tell you, we'll give you 3 months for bug fixes. No. Tell them I want more. Especially if you're paying them a decent amount of money, tell them I need longer time for bug fixes. Why? Because you're not going to be able to discover bug fixes until you have people on that site or on that app. And it will take you months to get it. So by the time people come, you lost out on the 3 months of free bug fixes, and now you have to pay them for everything you have to fix, even though it may be their fault completely. But contract says 3 months. So you negotiate a long-term support, maybe a year. They may charge you a little bit more in initial days, but you know what? It's okay. But get a long-term bug fix. Okay. As for additional development time, as part of the contract, okay? Again, sometimes what happens is we're sending them changes. ये नहीं चल रहा है, इसको ऐसे कर दो, ये नहीं चल रहा है. Then they suddenly call you one day, sir, this is outside of the contract. Well, I need this, right? Maybe I forgot, maybe something else happened. Problem is, that day negotiation is very hard because he knows you need it, right? Initially, you build it into the contract. You say, we're going to talk about developing this site, you're going to do all of this, plus I'm going to get 20 man-hours of development time from you, or 100 man-hours. So what happens is that 100 hours you can use as you wish for anything extra you want, okay? And I'm telling you, regardless of how much you even follow everything we tell you, documenting it, research, everything, you will still miss something. And you will need to spend to fix it or to get it done. It's better, negotiate it up front. Tell them I want 100 hours, or 20 hours, or 40 hours, whatever. Whatever they can negotiate. Okay? All right, guys. Let's ask Upur, who has a lot of experience in technology, what he thinks about technology, how we should adopt technology. All right, so Apurv, can you share your insights?
And I saw that the world of technology has a lot to offer to rest of the industries. Within that too, there are many technologies available. What we focused upon is that if we have to work in an emerging market and offer solutions, we must go for those technologies which will not cost a lot of money to my consumers. More importantly, being a startup and an entrepreneur, the opposite customer or the party will always think, will you be around to help me? And if you are not around, will this technology support me in future? Third most important factor, are there enough number of people available to understand and use that technology on a day-to-day basis? Suppose the technology is invented only recently and there are, let's say, only 100 people in the world who know about it. One, to find those 100 people to work for you is going to be difficult. Secondly, that technology may not be around after, let's say, 1 year. Thirdly, you will have to pay a lot of money to those 100 people. Rather, go for a technology which is more sustained, stable, and you have a large number of people understanding that. That lowers your cost, because end of the day, technology in itself is not going to make a solution work. What we are focusing upon is taking a business problem, using technology, combining the two and giving a solution. So technology is a very important role, but it should not become a bottleneck for me. That was a prime consideration for using whatever technology we do. For example, today we use Android in India for mobile technologies. Why not use iOS? For the simple reason that the number of people who are using Android is much larger, and it simply doesn't make sense to invest into iOS development when you can offer Android development. Of course, as the market progresses, you make your changes on the way, like we are working on both the technologies today.
I think those are great insights from Apurv, right? I think we would all agree, how you have to choose technology. We've gone through this in our class today, so I think there was great insights from Apurv there. Our audience and our entrepreneurs, our students online, if you want to get in touch with us, please email us with any questions you may have. We'll try to reply back to you as soon as possible. And make sure that you're logging on to our forums, sharing your insights, your questions, any opinions you have on our forums as well. It's a great way to build community out there. But thank you again for participating on our course.